Azure Synapse Analytics is a cloud-based enterprise data warehouse service that allows you to integrate and analyze data from various sources. One of the key features of Azure Synapse is its ability to ingest data from Azure Event Hub, a highly scalable and reliable event processing system. In this tutorial, we will walk through the steps to ingest data from Event Hub into Azure Synapse. First, you need to create an Event Hub namespace and an Event Hub, and then send events to the Event Hub. You can use the Azure portal or Azure CLI to create the Event Hub namespace and Event Hub. Once the Event Hub is created, you can send events to it using the Event Hub SDK or other tools. Next, you need to create an Azure Synapse workspace and a dedicated SQL pool. The dedicated SQL pool is where the ingested data will be stored. You can create the Azure Synapse workspace and dedicated SQL pool using the Azure portal or Azure CLI. To ingest data from Event Hub into Azure Synapse, you need to create a pipeline in Azure Synapse. The pipeline will read data from the Event Hub and write it to the dedicated SQL pool. You can create the pipeline using the Azure Synapse Studio, which is a web-based interface for managing Azure Synapse resources. In the pipeline, you need to add a source activity that reads data from the Event Hub, and a sync activity that writes data to the dedicated SQL pool. You can use the Event Hub source and SQL pool sync templates to create the activities. When configuring the Event Hub source activity, you need to specify the Event Hub namespace, Event Hub name, and the consumer group. You also need to specify the authentication method, which can be either connection string or managed identity. When configuring the SQL pool sync activity, you need to specify the dedicated SQL pool name, database name, and table name. You also need to specify the write batch size and write batch timeout. Once the pipeline is created, you can trigger it to run manually or schedule it to run at regular intervals. The pipeline will read data from the Event Hub and write it to the dedicated SQL pool. Best practices for ingesting data from Event Hub into Azure Synapse include monitoring the pipeline for errors and exceptions, optimizing the pipeline performance by adjusting the write batch size and timeout, and securing the pipeline by using managed identity and encryption. In conclusion, ingesting data from Event Hub into Azure Synapse is a straightforward process that involves creating an Event Hub namespace and Event Hub, creating an Azure Synapse workspace and dedicated SQL pool, and creating a pipeline to read data from the Event Hub and write it to the dedicated SQL pool. By following the steps outlined in this tutorial and following best practices, you can successfully ingest data from Event Hub into Azure Synapse and start analyzing your data in real time.